Cemeteries ostensibly are places of great normalcy for us, because we understand that nobody, no matter how good or loving or productive we may be in our lives, none of us will live forever. And so I've been a rabbi for 21 years, and in my early experiences of walking in cemeteries, I have to be honest in telling you that they often were deeply sad moments. And then about 5 years ago, my attitude completely changed. I realized that as we walk through cemeteries, rather than looking at markers and realizing or believing that they're monuments of death, they're actually quite the opposite. That tombstones, monuments, are markers of love. Because when you walk by these monuments, you realize that these people loved enough. They cared enough in their life that after they passed away, people came back and they built these stones. And they did it so that you and I would walk by these places and realize that their love endures. But the stone that we're dedicating by way of Abe and his family is just a little bit different. Because the stone that we're about to dedicate here not only says that these people are loved, it says something else. And it says the very same thing that each of you by being here says. That although Jews die, the Jews are eternal. And that's what we remember and honor here. Here lies Nachman ben Hersh Dvora, in loving memory of Nachman Goldfarb, alav shalom of blessed memory. 20th of November 1887, passed away on the 28th day of October 1940. Remembered as a cherished husband, father, and brother. Like so many of his generation, his life was cut short by the horrors of the Nazi insanity that denied him the right to see and to nurture his future generations. In the back of the stone that faces you, Aidla Rusak Goldfarb Aleha Shalom, 1885 to 1942, devoted wife, mother and sister, a victim of the Auschwitz death camp. Her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and all her future generations will never forget her history and continue to flourish in the future.
As we gather here today as a nation to pray and remember the souls of those who we have loved and lost, we ask that they should find eternal rest in your presence. We implore you, our God, to shelter them in the shadow of your eternal love, giving them their true and perfect peace. And let us all say amen. That's that prayer that the cantor just sung and I recited in English, El Malai, is one that we said just 2 days ago at Yisker services in Shul. And as I was saying it, I read the English, knowing that 2 days from when I was reciting it, that I would be here in this place, and I've been here before. And those words, my mind drifted, and those words took on a very special meaning for me, because here we are among witnessing the horrors from the Nazi era. I didn't know a lot about the Holocaust other than my parents went through it. It was something that we just didn't talk about at home. I'm still not sure whether it was me that sort of didn't ask enough questions of them, or they just didn't want to share their experiences because it was really so painful. But in 1994, when Spielberg produced Schindler's List and started the Shoah Foundation as a result of that movie, it took me a full year, but I finally convinced my parents to come out and tell their story about what their experiences were all about during the war years. One of the things that I found out was that my grandfather, who Mitzvah we're dedicating today, was a very, very Orthodox man. He davened 3 times a day, was very religious, had a beard. And I rewatched this film when my mother passed away, Alav Sholem, six years ago, and when I was trying to write the eulogy. And when she told that story about how Orthodox her father was and how religious he was, she got very emotional. And she said that he'd gotten beat up by the Nazis because he looked like an Orthodox Jew. And a few months later, he told them right then and there after he was beaten that he wouldn't survive long. And sure enough, he died within a few months. And that was in October 28, 1940. So the war had only been a year old. The LODZ ghetto had only been a few months old. And he was one of the first victims of that. But I'd never known any of this, and that's when the light bulb went off, and I said, I'm not only going to say Kaddish for my mother for a full year, but I'm going to also honor my grandfather at the same time. During the time that I was saying Kaddish for my mother for the year, everybody's got a website today, so I'm sitting at the kitchen table one day, and I Google LODZ Jewish Cemetery, and I type in, they had archived some names, and I type in my grandfather's name, Nachman Goldfarb, and sure enough, there's one Nachman Goldfarb. What are the chances? So they had records of my grandfather and the exact location of his grave. And basically, that brought us till today. And we're so thankful that you're here helping us commemorate this very, very special day for our family. And on that 98 trip, I was a chaperone for the kids, and I'm glad to say that 16 years later, my son is now a chaperone for some of you guys, so I'd like to bring him up to say a couple of words.
The unveiling of my great-grandparents' tombstone is iconic for me. It is the symbol of my connection to my past, and I am honored to share my connection with all of you. I am especially honored to fulfill this mitzvah for my Boogie and Zadie, in whose honor I march, and in whose honor I commemorate the past. My family's roots lie at the heart of who I am, where I've come from, and where I'm going tomorrow. This theme is consistent with our collective purpose, our collective objective. We mourn for the fallen, but we march for the living.
Because I don't know the exact location of where my grandfather is buried somewhere here in the cemetery, we decided to do a plaque that we're going to unveil. And to commemorate those members of the GLOWINSKY family who perished in the Holocaust: Abram Hersh, Hannah Liba Jolanch, my grandmother; Isaac was my dad's oldest brother. He passed away, I think, the year before. We're not sure. He disappeared from the ghetto. Tobalea, she was living in a different city. She had a child. She was married. She had a child. She also perished, but we don't know the exact date. Mordka, we've never found any records. He's still not. We don't know what happened to him. Moishe Yosef, Sender, Miriam, and Rivka, the 9 to 17 years old were the kids, and they went with my grandmother off in the train station, which is where we're headed to right now, the exact spot where that happened. So we dedicated in loving memory by their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, and all their future generations, Lador Vador. So I'm thrilled that everybody could join us in this ceremony, and along with my son, Rabbi, my wife, you guys. Thanks for coming.